Hello my friends, welcome to my review on the Anastasia Beverly Hills Prism eyeshadow palette. As you may know, I do like to spend some good quality time with the palette before I review it to make sure I'm giving you the most accurate, thorough information possible. So today we're going to be talking about not just this palette, but we're also going to be comparing it to the Subculture palette, because I don't know about you, but when I first saw the Prism palette, I was a little disappointed in the shade selection because I had just purchased the Subculture palette and I saw a lot of similarities. So we're going to do some side-by-side swatches and talk about formula and things like that. So if that sounds good to you, hang tight. We're going to get into it right now. My palette review videos are quite long, they're very thorough, they give you lots of information, and everyone finds different parts of my reviews valuable. So there will be skip ahead buttons down below in the description. You just need to click on the timestamp and it'll take you directly to the section that's labeled down in the description. So feel free to use that, I won't be insulted. Your time is valuable. Please just feel free to watch the sections of this video that you find helpful. We're gonna go ahead and start off with what you get in this eyeshadow palette. So it is a black packaging and it is a velvety kind of texture. It's got this beautiful design on the front. I'm a huge fan of the design on it. I think it's gorgeous. I have to tell you though, when I thought of a prism, I'm thinking rainbow. You know, that's the first thing I thought. I was like, oh my gosh, this is gonna be so amazing. And then I saw it opened and I was like, wah, wah, wah. Like, where's the rainbow? I mean, I guess we've got a little bit of rainbow in here, but it was not what I had expected based on the name. You do get 14 eyeshadows in here. Anastasia Beverly Hills says that they are a mix of ultra matte, duochrome, and metallic finishes. You also get a double-sided brush. The brush has a fluffy side and a flat side. I personally do not like this brush at all. I find this side to be very scratchy, and then this side is okay, but it's definitely not my favorite brush. I have brushes that are very, very inexpensive from like Moda and Real Techniques and things like that that I love way better than that brush. One thing that's very interesting about this one and the Subculture is it does say that there's a 6-month shelf life on this, which is very, very low compared to most eyeshadow palettes. Most eyeshadow palettes you'll get at least a year, if not 2 years of shelf life out of it. Personally, for me, I usually use an eyeshadow palette well past its shelf life, as long as it doesn't smell funny, as long as it doesn't seem like it's changing in any way, the colors aren't changing in drastic ways, or that, you know, it's just the texture just seems wrong. I continue to use them, but a 6-month shelf life is pretty small. And once we get into ingredients, we'll talk about it a little bit, but there's no like preservative in here like phenoxyethanol that is like known to be a preservative. There are things that can act like preservatives as far as ingredients in here, but there's nothing in here that's like the preservative. Like I used to use a lot of parabens and things until people stopped wanting to use parabens. Now they use phenoxyethanol in most products, but this doesn't have either in it. So that might be the reason why it's only a 6-month shelf life. So if you do choose to purchase this, make sure you keep an eye on it to make sure it's not doing anything weird that makes you think that it's gone bad. Same thing with the Subculture. It's the exact same thing. If you want to purchase this, it is available at Sephora, Ulta, Beautylish, Macy's, Anastasia Beverly Hills website, Dillard's, and Beauty Bay. A little bit about Anastasia as a brand, if for some reason you're not familiar. They are a cruelty-free brand, but they are not vegan. There is one shade in here called Osiris. It's this one here. This one does have carmine in it. Carmine is made from the juice of a bug. It is a red pigment, so if that grosses you out, you want to stay away from Osiris, but you can, none of the rest of them have carmine in them, unlike the Subculture palette, which said may or may not contain carmine on quite a few of the shades. The palette and the eyeshadows themselves are made in the United States, but just like I mentioned, the brush was made in China. So now let's go into the value of this palette. It is a $42 eyeshadow palette. Each pan is 0.7 grams, which is quite small. I usually don't like to see eyeshadow pans less than 1 gram per pan. You'll get up to 2 grams or more in a pan in some palettes, but this is just 0.7 grams, so you don't get a lot of product. It is 9.8 grams total in the palette, leading us to $4.29 per gram of product, which is not a great value compared to its peer brands like Urban Decay and Too Faced and Tarte and things like that. They usually hover around the $3 mark, a little less than $3 mark, so $4.29 is very expensive compared to those. I totally just noticed that my lipstick is like bleeding really bad, so I'm gonna fix that. Hold on a second. I'm wearing the Pat McGrath lipstick in the shade Flesh 3, and then I'm also wearing the Pat McGrath Clear Vinyl Gloss. Apparently, these don't go well together. Now we know. And it just goes to show that just because it's expensive doesn't mean that you're going to get something that works really well together. Not that they were marketed to be together, but anyway, now we're off topic. So let's go back into the Prism palette. Oh my gosh, totally off topic for a second. But anyway, so now let's go a little bit into ingredients. We're going to go ahead and compare the formulas of the Subculture and the Prism palette. I'm going to put up a chart now for you to show you the formula comparison between the Prism and the Subculture palette. So as you'll be able to notice, the matte formula is exactly the same in that they are the exact same ingredients in the exact same order. So if you like the Subculture mattes, it's the same formula in the Prism. Now with the shimmer shade, there's only one shade that has the same formula, and that's Pyramid from the Prism palette and Electric from the Subculture palette. Those are the same formula. The shades Osiris, Dimension, Lucid, Eternal, and Sphinx all have a formula that seems to be unique to the Prism palette. It's the same ingredients, they're just mixed up in different orders. So you can see there's about 11 ingredients there that is included in the Prism palette, but they're mixed up in the different shimmer shades. They include some, not others, and they're in a different order, so that's considered a different formula. One thing I thought was really interesting about the Anastasia Beverly Hills website is that there was a lot of critique with the Subculture as far as it being a new formula and them not telling anybody. That was one of my biggest critiques. So they've now labeled the different formulas of the eyeshadow palette. So this one is considered the full pigment formula. The Subculture, it says full pigment and easy to blend, and then the Modern Renaissance, it says highly pigmented and easy to blend. So it's a little bit different there. Like I mentioned before, there's only one shade in here, and that's Osiris, that has the carmine in it. All the shades are talc based. They also contain dimethicone, so if you don't like those ingredients for one reason or another, maybe you're sensitive to them, maybe you don't like them for whatever your personal preferences are, then you definitely don't want to get this. None of them have mica. Mica is one that some people either prefer or don't prefer for one reason or another. The shade Pyramid does have synthetic mica, that's this one here, but there's no actual mica in the palette. So now we've gone over Anastasia as a brand, we've compared the palettes a little bit. I want to definitely get really deep into the swatches. I'm going to show you swatches of the entire Prism palette with both finger swatch and brush swatch. My friend Jenny is a medium skin tone. I'm going to be swatching it on her skin, and then we're going to go ahead and show you some of the shades that look kind of similar in these palettes right next to each other, and then at the end I'm going to show you the shades that aren't really similar, that are pretty unique to each individual palette, to give you kind of an idea of what you'll be missing out on if you buy one or the other, to kind of help you make a better decision on which one, if either of these palettes you want. So let's go ahead and get into that right now.
All right, here's the Prism palette, and as you can see, the outside of the packaging does pick up a lot of dust and dirt, just so you know. Here are all of the shades. You can see there is quite a variety of shade range within this palette. We're going to start off with Lucid, Eden, Unity, and Sphinx. And as you can see, Lucid doesn't really show up. It doesn't show up with a brush, it doesn't show up with a finger, it doesn't show up hardly at all. I was disappointed at how the finger swatch showed up for Eden and Unity. I do feel like these are stronger matte colors, and I don't feel like the finger swatches do them justice. I did upgrade my brushes a bit because I wanted to make sure I was giving you the best swatches possible. So we're going to be using the MAC 242 for the shimmer shades and the MAC 239 for the matte shades. But as you can see with Lucid, it's not showing up on the brush. The brush is just not picking up the shade at all. I haven't found a way to work with it. Wet, dry, brush, finger, nothing is working with this. You can see that Eden does pick up really well on this brush, and I feel like it brush swatches pretty well. It does build beyond this if you want it to be even brighter. Unity does brush swatch beautifully, and I feel like that's how it performs on the eye. Sphinx finger swatches really well, but it brush swatches terribly. I do feel like you really need to use a finger for Sphinx rather than using a brush. I've had a lot of trouble getting it to pick up on a brush, even wet. It's just not working for me. So this is the first set of 4 all together. Overall, I feel like Lucid is a complete bust. Sphinx is good tapped on with a fingertip, and Eden and Unity are nice matte colors, especially Unity. I really like Unity. And if you're new to my channel, you're new to the wipe test, this is supposed to simulate a long day of wear to see whether the shadows will stain the skin temporarily, and it'll kind of help the shadows last longer. So you'll see Eden and Sphinx were the only ones that hung around. Moving on to Osiris, Sphere, Obsidian, and Dimension. I actually do like some of these shades. I like half of them. I like Sphere and I like Dimension. Osiris loses all complexity that's in the pan when you put it on the skin. The complexity's gone. It turns into kind of a gray shade. You can see here with the brush swatch, it's just stinking terrible. It's a horrible shade, unless you just want to use it for lightly smoking out, but don't expect to get that beautiful dimension you get in the palette. Sphere is a really fun shade. It's very, very well made. I do have trouble figuring out how to use it within this palette, but it is a very well made matte neon color. Obsidian is going to give you more of a smoky look rather than a matte black. I've tried this wet. I've tried building it up, and you can build it up with lots of work, but don't expect it to build it up without effort. It is going to be more of a smoky kind of color. And then Dimension is gorgeous. The finger swatch is beautiful. The brush swatch is a little bit weak, but you can apply the shade with the brush. It's a very nice formula, and I really do enjoy Dimension. And with the wipe test, this is actually quite impressive. You'll notice that Sphere really hangs on there, which surprised me because usually light shades are the first ones to wipe away, so I was really impressed it's still there. They're actually all still there to some level. Obsidian, of course, being a black, lasts the longest, or the best. And now moving on to Parallel, Pyramid, Throne, and Saturn. This I feel like is the strongest set of 4 that I'll be showing you in this palette today. Parallel is just a beautiful matte brown. It works great. It does exactly what it's supposed to do. Same thing with Saturn. Yeah, that brush swatch, woo, very nice, very nice. And then Pyramid is kind of like some of the other shimmer shades in this palette. It really is best applied with a fingertip, and even with that, it does need some work in my experience. You can wet the brush, but I haven't had much luck with wetting the brush either. Now, Throne is really, really nice. I feel like Throne is the superstar of this palette. I feel like it's got beautiful dimension to it. It does go on with a brush. I prefer it with a fingertip, but you can apply it with a brush as long as you're willing to build it up. And Saturn is just a beautiful matte orange shade. Favorite shades in this set of 4 is definitely Throne, and then Parallel and Saturn are just really nice mattes. I could kind of do without Pyramid. I just expect better from Anastasia Beverly Hills, you know? I just expect more. It's not terrible. I've seen worse, but if it's Anastasia, I expect it to be really, really, really good. I would say Throne is my absolute favorite here, even though the brush swatch really isn't doing it justice. Parallel and Saturn are wonderful. Pyramid is okay. It's definitely not up to what I would expect from Anastasia. Moving on to the last 2, we have Eternal and Lure, or Lure, however you want to say it. Eternal I had very, very high hopes for, but again, we've got that same kind of formula where it just doesn't build like I want a shimmer shade to build. Lure, on the other hand, is wonderful. But Eternal falls flat again as far as the quality of the shimmer shadow. I just own so many shimmer shadows that are such better quality than this that it's just not good enough for what I would expect at the price point that Anastasia sells at. It's not a terrible shade. It's not the worst thing ever, but I expect better. And then again with the wipe test, you'll see that the longevity of these shadows will most likely be pretty good. Now I wanted to do something a little bit different. Up on top we have the Subculture palette, and on the bottom we have the Prism palette. I wanted to kind of lay some of these shades next to each other so you could see how they compare, shades that look similar in the palettes. Lucid and Cube, they're similar formulas, even though they're not the same formula technically. They both are terrible. Neither of them really show up very well at all. I can't get them to work as toppers. They're just not good shades. Dawn and Unity are both equally as good. They are the same formula. You can see that Unity is a little bit more yellow tone. Dawn is a little peachier. And now we're going to do Adorn, and then we're going to do Sphinx and Eternal, because I wanted to show you what Adorn looked like next to those two, and you'll see the quality of Adorn is so much better than Sphinx and Eternal. Yeah, I mean, you just see that Adorn is that really good foiled formula, and the other two from the Prism palette just aren't good. compared to that one. And the shades really aren't that different. And Sphinx and Eternal are in the same exact palette. They're in the Prism palette. So I think that's kind of a waste of space in the Prism palette to have both of those shades when they're so similar. Now we're going to move on to 4 more. We're going to do Mercury next to Lure. And both of these are that same awesome matte formula. You can see they really aren't dupes. They're not even really that close. You could use them for similar purposes, but Mercury is definitely deeper than Laura. Laura has more of a pink tone. We're going to see more similarities now here with Roxy and Eden and Saturn. Now first we have Roxy, and you can see it's almost the same shade as Eden. Eden is just a little bit more peach, where Roxy's a little more orange. And then we're going to pull Saturn from the Prism palette, and you can see that one's just a little more red tone. It is a little bit more opaque than Eden, but do they need to be in the same palette? In my opinion, no. Now we're going to do Fudge and Parallel. Those are the matte browns that are in both the palettes, and as you can see, they are very similar. Now what I wanted to do is show you the shades that I hadn't shown you yet. So we're going to start off with the Subculture palette and the shades that don't have anything even close to like them in the Prism palette. So these are the shades you'd be missing out on, like really missing out on, if you only bought the Prism palette. You can see there are quite a few shades. It is very unique compared to the Prism palette. Now moving on to the Prism palette, I'm going to show you less shades because there are shades that can be almost duped within the palette like I showed you just a minute ago. So these are the only shades that really stand on their own as being very unique to this palette over the Subculture. Dimension and Throne are definitely some of my favorite shades in the palette, so you may want to buy this palette just for Dimension and Throne, but I really don't feel like you're missing out that much on Osiris or an Obsidian. Sphere is very, very special to these palettes, but I don't know how wearable that is for a lot of people, and I'm having some trouble figuring out how to use it within this palette, but that may be one that would be a selling point for Prism for you as well. And finally, we're going to show you my friend Jenny. She has medium skin tone and she is from the Philippines, so I wanted to show you the swatches on her. So first, Lucid, Eden, Unity, and Sphinx. I got her to do a little twist for me this time and to kind of show off those shimmers for you. And now the second set of 4, Osiris, Sphere, Obsidian, and Dimension. You can see how lightly pigmented Obsidian is for a matte black. Again, this is going to be a nice smoky color. It's not going to be a solid black. It's going to take a little work to get it to opaque matte black. Osiris really does lose the depth that you see in the pan, which makes me sad, but Sphere and Dimension both look beautiful. And then here's the next set of 4, Parallel, Pyramid, Throne, and Saturn. These look gorgeous on her skin tone. And then finally, we have Eternal and Lure. And you can see, even though Lure isn't that far away from her natural skin tone, you can really see it. It's very, very nice. And Eternal, again, a little bit weak, but you can definitely see that shimmer. I just wish it was a little more opaque, similar to the bronzy shade that's in the Subculture palette.
You have seen the swatches and heard some of my opinions. I'm going to give you some more opinions now with the demo of how I got this look today. I will tell you that I am not 100% happy with this look, but I'll get into that as I'm doing the demo for you to kind of tell you why I don't like what was happening on my eyes. There are certain things I like, certain things I don't like. I'm going to stop babbling. Just watch the demo. I'll explain it then. All right, you ready to get into this eye look? I know I'm ready to show you. So this is the MAC Paint Pot in Painterly. I did apply this to my eyes before I started filming, and we're gonna go ahead and take the brush out because I don't like that brush at all. This shade is Lure, and this is the shade I'm gonna use up in my crease. And I really like the way this applies. It applies very smoothly and very easily, and no problems at all with this shade.
It's taken me a little while to think about what the world I want to do with this palette. I'm still having some trouble figuring out how to put these shades together into a look, so sometimes it takes me a little while, but we do come to a conclusion and we decide to procrastinate and decide to just put a little parallel in the outer corner just to give myself a little bit of time to think about what I want to do on my lid. So I'm just kind of putting that out in the outer corner, and now we're going to pop Eden in the center to outer corner of the lid. This again is a very, very nice matte shade. And you can't see, but I'm dipping into Unity, and then I'm going to pat that over the middle of my lid, kind of crossing over and into the inner corner. Definitely not the neatest application ever, but we're going to fix it. We're going to blend those shades right into each other using a Luxie brush. And just using a clean fluffy brush to blend that out. And now I really wanted to show you what Lucid looked like over top of these matte shades. I wanted to show you what it looked like as a topper, and as you'll be able to see, it doesn't really work. It doesn't really do anything as a topper. Very, very disappointed in the way this shade looks, but I figured I would just kind of keep going just so that you could see how it worked and the fact that it doesn't. I don't like that one at all. But we're going to keep going, and we're going to move on, and we're going to go into the shade Pyramid in the inner corner of the lid, just kind of mirroring what I had done with the matte shade. I just wanted to show you how these worked, and it really isn't super bright, so I decided to show you with a brush, and there is no Fix Plus or anything on this. I just wanted to show you what it looked like with a dry brush, and it does apply about the same. You do have to just build and build and build with these shimmer shades. It's kind of frustrating. And then the outer corner, we're going to take Eternal and build that up in the outer corner, just to kind of create that darker on the outside, lighter on the inside kind of look. And again, we're going to go in with the brush on the one side of my face and my fingertip on the other, just so you can see if there's a difference. And really what I find is you just have to build and pack and build and pack and build and pack with a brush. But you can get it to build up to about the same as a fingertip, but these are probably some of my least favorite foiled metallic-y kinds of shades I've seen recently. Parallel, just bringing that down on the lower lash line. You can see it's completely 100% effortless on the lower lash line with this Moda brush. And then just kind of taking that fluffy clean brush and blending just a little bit more. I had brought that shade down a little bit further past my lower lash line just to deepen up that outer corner a bit. And now just going back into Lure just to give something a little bit lighter on the inner corner of the lower lash. And this is where I'm going to leave it because I don't want to make it worse than it already is. Not a huge fan of this look, but I do want to show you the way it looks with liner and lashes, and that is it. I did feel like I wanted to pair this with a bold lip because I felt like my eye look came out quite boring considering the foiled shades that I was trying to use. I don't know if these are considered foils, but the metallic shades, I just have such better shadows than these, and it's just very disappointing, but it's fine for a nice, lighter, kind of shimmery look.
So if you haven't already gotten enough information, now I'm going to give you my full review of these products. Some of my opinions I've alluded to throughout this video as far as how I feel about this palette. I'm not a fan, and the reason why I'm personally not a fan is because I'm a big shimmer lover. I love shimmer and shine and sparkle and all of that. I just feel like the duochromes and the metallic finishes in here are just not good compared to what else there is on the market. They're just not good. They're so chunky and they don't go on smooth. This shade Lucid is awful. It's really just, I mean, you saw in the demo, I tried to use it as a topper. It doesn't even work as a topper. I've used it with a brush. I've used it with a fingertip. I mean, I've tried to use these multiple times in multiple ways, and they're just not good. They're just not good. Throne, I feel like, is the superstar of this eyeshadow palette, but my issue with Throne is I'm not going to wear this that often, and if I am going to wear it, it's going to be as an accent color. I don't like super dark colors all over my lid, unless it's like Halloween or a super special like night out where I'm going for like really sexy smoky kind of look. Would I ever wear a shade like Throne all over my lids, which is what I feel like that shade would be the most beautiful, is all over the lid. Now the other side of it is the mattes in here are really, really good. I do love the mattes. The mattes are creamy, they're not patchy, they're not so easy to use because they are really, really pigmented, so you have to gently build them up, kind of like if you saw any of the Subculture videos, there were people people that were swirling their brush together because they didn't realize that it was a brand new formula and they were having so much trouble with the fallout and everything. You have to be very gentle with the mats, gently tap your brush in, barely get any product, just kind of swirl your fluffy brush in just very gently. It'll pick up plenty of product. You just have to go easy on it and just slowly build up the product. And if you do that, the mats are wonderful. And I feel the same way about Subculture. I feel like the mats are wonderful. I do want to especially talk about Sphere, because Sphere is a great shade. It's beautiful. It does exactly what I would hope that it would do, being a matte neon yellow. My issue is I don't know how to use it. And that's just me and my lack of expertise. The only shades I can see to even use this with would maybe be Throne and Osiris. I mean, I don't see why it's there. It's like, what are you doing here, Sphere? Like, where did you even come from and why are you here? Like, I wouldn't want to hurt its feelings. Thankfully, it doesn't have feelings, but it just seems so incredibly out of place. And maybe they were just trying to make it unique or something. I don't know, but or maybe it might look good like with Saturn on a deep skin tone. But for me, like, I'm confused by it more than anything. If you've used Sphere with other shades in this palette, I would love to know what you use it with. I mean, oh, I guess you could use it with Obsidian. That would be kind of cool to do like a black and like a neon yellow look, but I'm not gonna wear that. Like, that's just not my style. So you see what I'm saying? It just doesn't fit what I personally like. Osiris I have an issue with in that the undertones are very black, so you lose, when you put this on the eye, you lose any complexity, any dimension that it had. It's gone once it hits the eye. So I am not a fan of that one at all. I meant to mention that when we were talking a minute ago about the shimmers. So overall, this is not going to be a recommend based on my personal preferences, but based on what you like, you may like it. You just have to kind of listen to what I've said as far as what you like in a palette, and then maybe it'll work really well for you. But it's definitely not working for me. I don't like it. I don't like it. If I had to choose between the two, I would definitely choose the Subculture. I feel like the Subculture is much more user-friendly in the shade selection. I feel like the quality of the shadows is much better. I do have a full review of the Subculture. I can link that down below in case you want to see my full thoughts on this with full swatches of the whole palette and everything. But yeah, this one's a big no for me. I really didn't like it. It's not for me. I am going to keep it because it is good for my collection for swatches and dupes and things like that, but nope, they missed the mark on that one for me. I'm really hoping that Anastasia keeps being unique and keeps trying to come out with something different, but then also thinks about why they're putting those things together, having some kind of like I just don't get this palette. I don't get what they were going for. Especially having had the Subculture come out right before and them probably being designed at the same time. Like, I just don't get, like, they're too similar. They're just too similar. It's just, I mean, they're not the same, but they're similar, and I just don't get it. I don't get it. So I think I've rambled enough. Hopefully you get my point. At this point, I'm going to turn the conversation over to you, my friend. I would love to know, if you own the Prism palette, what you think of it. What shades have you been using together? Because I'm really looking to expand my looks that I'm creating with this, and I'm having a hard time figuring out, you know, how I want to use this, because it's just a weird palette. Have you had better luck with the shimmer shades? If you have, what kind of brushes are you using? Are you using your fingertips? Are you using Fix Plus? What are you doing to make them work for you? I would love to know. If you don't own this palette, are you planning on getting it? And if you are or aren't, why? I would love to know. And also, if there was anything in this video that turns you one way or another, I would love to know what that was, so I can make sure I continue to provide that kind of information for you in future videos. That way I can make sure I'm doing the things that are helpful for you. We are the collective brain of makeup awesomeness. It's all about us as a community helping each other. So feel free to read the comments down below, to ask questions, answer questions, have a conversation. Let's all work together and get as much information as we can about this Prism palette so that we can all make the best purchase choice possible. I want to thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, definitely make sure you give it a thumbs up because it makes me look super cool. Hit that subscribe button if you enjoy my content. I do put out about 9 videos a week, plus my weekly chat on Sundays at 10 a.m. Eastern time most of the time. I put out 5 makeup minutes, which is makeup news, and then on Sundays I put out the What's Up in Makeup news show. It's the full-length news show, and then I do 3 other review, tip, trick videos throughout the week on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So if that sounds good to you, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss anything, and mad love to you, and I will see you in a video soon.